So as Russia bombards Ukraine's energy infrastructure, the American President Donald Trump will be holding a phone call with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. The President Zelensky, on the other hand, hopes to seal the Tomahawk deal with Trump during their meeting on Friday. But Trump has a bigger game plan. After the ceasefire in Gaza is now pulling all strings to try and bring an end to this complex war. But the question, of course, is this: will Trump's gamble pay off? Our next report gets you more.
Winter is near, and the firepower is blazing like never before. Kyiv says Russia is laying the groundwork for a winter offensive with a large-scale bombardment. Russia is striking gas facilities in eastern Ukraine, sparking outages in 8 regions. A fresh wave of strikes to freeze Ukraine into submission. Deadly Russian drone strikes have left several parts of Kharkiv and Poltovo regions in the dark. Clearly, it's a pressure tactic to exhaust Ukraine's energy network and cripple the nation's already weak energy infrastructure. Russia's intensified strikes come at a time when Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky will be meeting Trump to push for more military support in Washington. This time on Zelensky's shopping list is long-range Tomahawks. That will put Moscow and other major Russian cities within range of missile fire from Ukraine.
We have already prepared our part of the homework before the meeting with President Trump, the military part and also our economic part. All the details, everything is there. The agenda of our meeting with the President of America is very meaningful, and I thank everyone who helps. This can really bring the end of the war closer. It is the United States that has the ability to have such global influence, and we are doing everything to ensure that others in the world are on the same side with us in this work.
Trump is keeping up suspense over his decision on Tomahawks. He hasn't committed to new arms supplies yet. Instead, he wants his allies to purchase U.S. arms for supply to Ukraine under Pearl Initiative.
We need our allies to step up, and they did, and they have, in those commitments. Now those commitments will soon translate into capabilities, which is the most important aspect of it. And one part of that, of course, is Pearl, is the initiative where European countries buy U.S. weapons, transfer to NATO for the fight in Ukraine, to bring peace to that conflict.
U.S. is keeping up the pressure on Moscow to end the war. It wants India and China to stop buying Russian oil at any cost.
If India doesn't buy oil, it makes it much easier. And they're not going to buy. They assured me they will, within a short period of time, they will not be buying oil from Russia. And they'll go back to Russia after the war's over.
China warns against U.S., accusing it of unilateral bullying and economic coercion. While New Delhi has dismissed Trump's claim that Modi assured him purchasing less Russian oil.
On the question of whether there was a conversation or a telephone call between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, I am not aware of any conversation yesterday between the two leaders.
As the war refuses to cool down, Ukraine and its European allies hope the ceasefire in Gaza will reinvigorate Trump's peace push in Ukraine and train Trump's focus more closely on ending the conflict. But the complexity of the 3-year-long war is more than what meets the eye. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now joining us on the broadcast from Washington, D.C., we've got Dr. Charles Kupchan, who's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Dr. Kupchan, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. And let me start off by asking you this. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky will, of course, be meeting with the American President Donald Trump. But in your assessment, you know, this talk that the United States could sell Tomahawk missiles to the Ukrainians for the war effort, given the fact that Putin has made it clear that any nation that gives these kind of long-range weapons to be used against Russia will itself become a legitimate target for Russia. Do you think the American president would be willing to sell the Tomahawk weapons to Ukraine?
I think that this is part of a broader strategy of increasing the pressure on Putin. I think Trump has realized that Vladimir Putin is not going to end this war at the negotiating table as long as he thinks that he can continue to make progress and perhaps achieve his ultimate aim, which is to break Ukraine, to topple the government, to pull Ukraine back into Russia's sphere of influence. I think at this point, we're looking at Trump raising the ante. Do I think that at some point he will be ready to transfer the Tomahawks? Yes, but a lot depends on whether he thinks that Putin is ready to negotiate in good faith. We've seen a lot of these kind of saber-rattling threats from Putin in the past. Don't transfer this, don't transfer that. And those transfers have nonetheless been made, whether it's tanks or longer-range ATACMS missiles. So I do think if we don't see a peace deal sometime soon, Trump will go ahead and transfer these longer-range missiles.
Right, now the other approach that Donald Trump has also taken is to try and impose more financial pressure on Russia, and he's tried to do this by trying to cut off the nations that can trade with Russia. This is what Donald Trump has been saying, that if India and China do not trade and purchase the Russian oil, it would be easier to reach the peace deal. If this is what Donald Trump's approach is, do you think he's made it harder for himself by resorting to a trade war through which he's tried to browbeat and bully those nations who could potentially have been American allies?
Well, number one, I don't think that the economic sanctions are the critical factor here. We've seen very far-reaching sanctions on Russia for more than 3 years now, and they haven't really succeeded in strangling the Russian economy and scaling back the war effort. Could you tighten some sanctions on Russian banks? Yes. Would it be good if China, India, Turkey, and other countries bought less Russian fossil fuels? Yes, because it would decrease the flows of goods, of money coming in to Russia. But I don't think that you can really see this economic pressure as the critical ingredient here. For me, it's providing Ukraine the defensive weapons that it needs to stop Russia from continuing to advance. And yes, I agree with you that trying to put pressure on India, trying to put pressure on China may well backfire. And I don't really think that Trump is going to go all the way here, because putting massive high-level tariffs on China would really blow up the global economy and put us into a major trade war. And so I think that the key here is really on giving Ukraine what it needs to defend itself, the economic sanctions a less critical ingredient.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Kupchan, for joining us with that perspective there.